This is the issue, and I am the ghetto man. Today's issue, the power of one. We'll be right back.
Lies! Lies! All lies! All governments lie! Lies! Lies! All lies! Your government is telling you lies! I was asleep, but now I've awakened. The tree of life has shown me the way. Corporate politicians have been exposed for the
The power of one. You know what's really nice about living in a Republican form of government under our Constitution is that each individual citizen is sovereign. We're little kings of our own castle, so to speak. We have rights that are so important, that are so fundamental, that our founding fathers made a special clause in the contract called the Bill of Rights. And although there are far more rights that are listed in the Bill of Rights, these rights were so fundamental that our founders wanted to make sure that under no circumstances could our servant government ever consider touching these sacred rights. All right. If we read the first three words of the United States Constitution, what's it say? It says, "We the people." It doesn't say "we the government." It says, "We the people." We the people, the sovereigns, the kings, the lords and masters of our own destiny. This Constitution, we wrote it. This contract, Constitution, covenant, contract, they all mean the same thing. This contract, the Constitution. We wrote that so that government would be bound by law and restrained forever from ever becoming a government that controls every aspect of your life. All right, as a citizen today, we seem powerless. We say, well, what is it that we could possibly do that could turn this around? Well, the first thing that needs to be done, the very first thing, and I've discussed this over and over again, education. You have to educate yourself. You have to understand what the Constitution means. And the only place that you can actually really get an understanding, at least today, because it's not taught in the government school system and it's not taught in the colleges, is that you're going to have to do some research on your own. And you're going to have to learn what the intent of the framers were. And you got to understand what liberty and property and money and all these things really mean, especially as it's outlined under our law. And why do I say this? Well, it's obvious. You can't identify a problem if you don't know what it is. If somebody is violating the Constitution, openly violating it, you have no idea what the Constitution means, and you have no idea what the intent of the framers were, how in the world can you ever identify the problem? And then when you do, let's say you have the education and you understand how the Constitution works, how do you change it? Well, the First Amendment says you can petition the government for redresses of grievances, but just try that sometime. It doesn't work. In fact, all the checks and balances that have been put in place in the Constitution, they might as well just fall on deaf ears. This government that's running the show today is illegitimate. It does not obey any portion of the law. It just completely does exactly what it wants. The executive branch legislates law. The legislative branch lets the judiciary go ahead and basically make rulings and call it case law. So they're legislating law from the bench, and then the judiciary tells everyone, well, we're the final word in the matter, and that's that. And none of this is true. Now, you could always, get involved politically. That would be another way to, try to make some changes. But once again, if you don't know how it works, how can you go up there and even begin to make changes? When everybody's up there is just there for one thing, and that's just for their political gain. They could care less about the law. They just want to get this law passed so this group of people benefit from it, and this law passed so this group of people benefit from it. And most of the time, and I mean this, most of the time, none of these laws are even constitutional. So before you can go and operate as a representative or work in a Republican form of government, you just got to understand how that works. You got to understand your duty. In most cases, we have people have to take oaths for office, and in that oath, it'll say that I solemnly swear to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And then, as soon as they get done, they go in there and they just business as usual. Nobody understands what their constitutional obligation is. Okay, since we're dealing with the problem of education first, and we've discussed that, that all the school systems are set up, our public school system is set up exactly the way Karl Marx outlined it in his Communist Manifesto, in the 10 plank of the Communist Manifesto, free education in public schools. And that's there so that the government can go ahead and teach our children what they want them to know. In most cases, it's just a lie. But then you were taught the lie too when you were in there. And so you don't know that it's a lie. The children don't know it's a lie. So those who have this political agenda are pushing people along by conditioning their minds through the public school system to think and act a certain way. And that way is not the way that was established by our founders. Okay, what do we do about that? Well, you got to get educated. And this is what my whole purpose of these videos are for, is to try to set up a forum that was, instead of being, I don't know, all sanitary and suit and ties and, trying to look all official. I just wanted to be just, I'm just a guy just like everybody else out here that's having to make its way through this broken system. But there are places that we can start. And as I said earlier in one of my other videos, we deal with the jury system, whether it's the grand jury or the petit jury, which is the petit jury is a trial jury. That when you're on these juries, that assuming it's very difficult, assuming that you understand how the law works and what your duty is as a citizen in our republic, then you can take a look at the law that's being imposed upon your community, and you can say, well, is this law just? Are we dealing with something here that is going to benefit the community, or are we going along with something that is just taking advantage of the community and shaking people down and locking up for no crime whatsoever? Not even a crime against themselves. How can you do a crime against yourself? I guess they say suicide is, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So let's just take a real simple example here, okay? We have a law, and the law says that you cannot eat ice cream in public, okay? And if you get caught eating ice cream in public, there's going to be a $100 fine or 6 months in jail or both. Now, we all know that this eating ice cream in public is not a crime, but somehow the legislators have come up with this, they call it a quasi-crime, meaning everyone knows it's not a crime, but for the purposes of this law, we're going to treat this act if it was a crime, even though it's not. Quasi-criminal. That's what that term is. Okay, you go to this guy. Guy's caught on camera eating ice cream in public, and he's arrested, and he's booked, and he's gone for arraignment, and he's put in his plea not guilty or guilty, but he says not guilty. All right, you're sitting on the jury, and you should every time the opportunity comes up, if you can. I mean, really, it's such an important duty to get on the jury. Okay, you're on the jury. All the facts are presented. The prosecution put his case, the defense put his case. They rested. Okay, and it's time for you to go into deliberation, and everything's been taken care of. Jury instructions are all ready to go, and you're sitting in there. But while the judge is reading you the jury instructions, he's telling you that what he wants is a commitment from you that you will, make your ruling based upon the facts of the case, but you are not to rule upon the law because that's the judge's job. The judge is going to present the law to you, and you have to take that law as it's presented. Well, that's kind of a catch-22, isn't it? If you have to take the law as presented, and suppose the law is ridiculous as this one, that you're being arrested and charged with the crime of eating ice cream in public, and the judge has told you that all you have to do is rule on the facts, but the facts clearly show that he ate ice cream in public. There it was. But is it fair? Is it fair that this person has to pay a $100 fine and maybe even spend 6 months in jail because you are just going to go ahead and rule according to the facts? Or do you, as one person in the community, in a criminal trial, one person can say, I think the law sucks. And because it sucks, I'm not going to vote for conviction. I'm going to rule that this law sucks, and I don't think anybody should be prosecuted under it, and I'm not going to convict. So one person out of 12, you've stopped it right there. They have to have a unanimous 100%. Now think about if you had 12 people that were in there that were educated like you, and all 12 of them said, this law sucks. And all 12 of them says, I'm not going to convict the guy, even though it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt that this guy was eating ice cream in public. We're not going to ruin his life. We're not going to take a father away from his family, away from his job to produce for his family. Then while he's in jail for 6 months, then we're going to go ahead and put the family on welfare. And then all of us in the community, we have to pay for somebody because he committed the heinous crime of eating ice cream in public. We can stop that law. You can stop that law, one person. And the more and more people that we get educated, we can start to take a look at all these laws, on all the laws that are out there, especially in the criminal and these quasi-criminal laws. Laws where there is no corpus delicti. Corpus delicti means the body of the crime. Where's the body? Where's the damage? Where is the crime? What was damaged? Who was hurt? Whose life, liberty, or property was violated? Laws that prosecute people when somebody's life, liberty, or property hasn't been violated should not stand. And you don't have to sit here and get all these petitions up and petition your government for the redress of grievances and say, we want to change this law and this law is this and that. You can change it right now in your neighborhood. One person can change it. That's how powerful you are. One can change it. What happens when you have a whole community full of people that disagree with that law? What you have is you put the prosecutor between a rock and a hard place. Every time they go out here and try to prosecute somebody for one of these ridiculous crimes that have no corpus delicti, every time, if they know that the majority of the people sitting on that jury is going to acquit because the law is stupid, the law is unjust, the law is unconstitutional. You're the judge. When you sit in the jury, you're the judge, not the person sitting there in the black robe. That person is a referee. Unless it's a bench trial where the judge gets to go ahead and decide what the law is and the facts, that's a whole other story. But when you're sitting on the jury, you are the judge. Very powerful. I think that it takes so much time and so much time, effort, and energy because of the damage that the government full system has done to the people in this country. There's just they have no idea what their power is, and this is the same thing you can do on a grand jury when they're getting ready to indict somebody, and if the law is no good, it's no good. I mean, we can give all kinds of examples to change things. Today we have a monetary system that is not based on gold and silver coin as mandated by the law, as the law is written today. And the laws dealing with the Federal Reserve and all the Federal Reserve Act, they're all unconstitutional, and anybody that studied the issue knows that. We know that we want to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Well, how would we do that? Well, for starters, the only thing that the government can take from you in fines and payment of debt, the only thing that they're allowed to take from you under the Constitution, under Article 1, Section 8, where the Constitution gives the power to Congress to coin the money and regulate the value thereof and set the standards and weights and measurement. And then Article 1, Section 10, where it specifically says that no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender payment of debt. Now, the United States government does not make gold and silver coin. All right? And since no judge and nobody can impose any type of fine on you and make you pay in anything other than the unit accountability of the United States, which is gold and silver coin, specifically silver coin. How do you pay a fine when the only money that is the Constitution allows the government to take is no longer being made available to us? Now, this is a very important argument because if the government can't demand from you anything other than the unit accountability of the United States, it can't demand from you private money from the Federal Reserve, private bank money, any more than it can demand from you apples or oranges. The judge can't say, well, since there's no money available, what we'll do is we'll just fine you in apples. Sorry, Your Honor. But you don't have the authority to change what you can demand from me, gold and silver coin under Article 1, Section 8, in the Coinage Act of 1792 and 1900. You don't have the authority to do anything else, and that includes Federal Reserve notes, which we call dollars today, and they're not. Federal Reserve notes aren't dollars. The Ninth Circuit ruled on that years ago. They're not even money. They just circulate as money. They've made them legal tender. The word legal means to offer. So they made them legal to offer, but you don't have to take them. And you have a right to demand lawful money, gold and silver coin, on every transaction. But see, this government doesn't make it available. And since they can't collect taxes on anything other than gold and silver coin, are you starting to get my drift here? When you have somebody up here that has that argument and goes into court, and you're sitting on that jury, and you understand that the Federal Reserve banking system is unconstitutional, and you understand that the government can't demand from anybody anything other than gold and silver coin as a tender and payment of debt, and you understand that the United States government does not obey the Constitution. In fact, they've buddied up with a corporation called the Federal Reserve, and they're making you take fiat currency issued by a private bank. and then we borrow that money directly from the bank for full face value, and we tack interest on it, which can't be paid until you borrow more money to have in circulation to pay for the interest. You want to stop the Federal Reserve? You want to stop it? Then do not convict anybody that doesn't pay one tax. They can't pay the tax because the money to pay the tax isn't available. And that can be stopped at the trial level. That can be stopped with the community that goes and sits on the jury. Your power as a juror is absolutely unbelievable. You're so powerful in this system that we have. But you don't understand how powerful until you understand how the law works. And so I know that I've covered this covered some of this in the jury nullification, but your power, I mean, over the years, I found that when things I had government that was doing things that were just absolutely insane, that I did have the power to make things change. And one example was real quick, because he show you, here I am, I do a job, and the guy gives me a check. The check's no good, it bounces. And so I have to go through all the rigmarole of going to court, and I get in a judgment against this guy and everything else. Okay, now we got a judgment with the guy. We know who the guy is, but he used to work for the fire department, and he's friends with the detective that handles the collections of these things. So what the detective does is he just sits on his ass, does nothing. Time goes by, and you call him up. So what's going on? We know where the guy is. Why haven't you gotten down and get this taken care of? This is a crime. Oh, well, it's been a long time now, and I don't think whether or not I can do that or nothing. Well, wait a minute, pal. The only reason why it's been a long time is because you've been sitting on your hands. Well, there's nothing I can do about it. Wrong thing to say. So what I ended up doing is I go ahead and file a petition to the court for a writ of, I call it a prohibition mandate. Prohibition means you prohibit somebody from doing something. Mandate means you make them do something, or any other writ the court want to say. So I file for a writ of mandamus, basically. And the courts see it my way, and now I got a court order, and I take it to that detective, and I say, do your job. If you don't, the judge is going to hold you in contempt of court. And guess what? He did his job. That's a way of getting one person making a change. And you can do this without having to hire a lawyer. That's what it is that I used to do, is to teach people how to use the court system without a lawyer. You know how to do all your legal research. You know how to make and meet objections, how to write motions and briefs, to understand the rules of evidence, the rules of court. It goes on and on and on. How to do it from the scene of the crime all the way to appeal. And so when a person learns how to do this themselves, see, they're not a victim and have to hire a lawyer. Although it's not easy, because as we talked before, the American Bar Association is the biggest fascist organization there is. It's a corporation that completely runs the entire judiciary. But that stuff can change too, because if there's enough people that are going up there and start to see the quirks and how these judges aren't doing their jobs and how they're violating the law, we can get rid of those people. You can vote them out. But see, you can't even vote somebody in or out unless you know whether or not these people understand the law, or have they been programmed by the system so that they're politically motivated and that they're just going to go along with this system that operates outside of the Constitution. I mean, another good example is Rosa Parks. Okay? Here you have a black lady who, all by herself, well, I mean, I'm sure she had people that helped her legally and that sort of thing, but they had laws down there in the South where when the buses were full, if you were black and a white person came on the bus, you had to give up your seat for the white person. Well, that is not constitutional. Anybody, it doesn't matter what your color is, you're a citizen of this country. You have a right in any public thing to sit wherever any other person can sit. Equal protection under the law. So anyway, Rosa Parks wouldn't give up her seat, and she was arrested, and she was convicted. She was convicted. If she had people on the jury that understood the law, and saw that the law was not valid, then of course they could have easily said we're not going to convict her because the law is no good. But they did. They convicted her anyway and went up on appeal. And finally ended up with the United States Supreme Court. Make long story short, the Supreme Court saw it her way and said, no, you can't discriminate based on race, creed, or color, or whatever, religion, any of that stuff. So anyway, one person, okay? One person did that. I mean, we had the same thing with Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King. These are people who understood that when there was an injustice, there were things that they can do. And civil disobedience, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, civil disobedience usually shows you how wicked the government actually is. Because when you protest nonviolently and the opposition gets violent, people don't like that. They look at that and they say, And that's what happened with the civil rights movement. They got so crazy. They were sicking dogs on people and squirting them with hoses and arresting people and beating them up. And it was just the same thing that Antifa's doing, with the Democrat Party. Same thing. Intimidating people into not exercising their rights to that are protected under the Constitution. Mahatma Gandhi, same thing. I mean, when the British got so crazy, they were just beating people down with clubs. As they lined up, just beat them down. And finally, a reporter saw it and said, hey, you got to see what's going on here. It's just completely crazy. And then changes were made. So you can do it through civil disobedience. You can do it through the court systems, the grand juries, the petit juries. You can go on there and you can nullify bad laws, and you can teach people in your community what I'm trying to teach, or more. There's a lot of smarter people out there, that understand the Constitution. There's a lot of people who understand money better than I do. I'm going to try to cover all these things the best I know how, but there are people out there that really understand that more. But what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to, put a spark under your ass and say, hey, get involved. Get involved. Sign up. Make sure you can get on the juries. See, right now, the people who go on the juries are people who are pretty much that are dependent on the system. And they're going to do exactly what they're told. People hold jobs and stuff. It's hard. They have to go get away from work. You need to really sit down and talk to your employers and really start to work out what is it that you can do, so that you can become more active, in your community. And there's nothing better than sitting on a criminal case. You got some guy that, got caught smoking a joint, for crying out loud. What did he hurt? I mean, come on. And you can stop that. You can stop that. You can say, I'm tired of our kids getting arrested for marijuana and ruining their future when there's no harm done here. I mean, look at it's taken. That was the '60s. We thought we were going to get rid of the marijuana thing back in the '60s, and here it is, 2017. I mean, we're making some headway with medical marijuana and some recreational stuff as well. And it's still it's crazy. It's like, people. I guess they like to lie. Anyway, all I'm saying is that I'd like you to stick with me, and I'd like you to share what I've got to say with others. I know that sometimes I can be a little bit inflammatory, but sometimes you have to, put a spark under someone's ass if you expect them to move. And so I'll say things like all Democrats are traitors because they are. And then we'll point it out legally why they are, politically why they are. And how did it get this way? I mean, when you think about it, McCarthy was, I think he may have been right. He was trying to stop the communist movement in the United States. He wanted to make sure people that were, going to get jobs in government, taking an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies in foreign and domestic. We're coming in here and trying to do a political coup d'etat by sticking their people within all the various different branches of government, in the businesses, everywhere, in the school system, and we get everybody in there, and then these people just go ahead and ignore the law and commit treason against the United States, and nobody even cares. The sad part is that nobody even knows that they're doing it. So how are you going to stop the decay and the loss of our republic when you don't even know what a republic is? You don't know the difference between a Democrat or a Republican. You don't understand how any of the systems work and how important it is as a citizen, your duty. We talked about the militia, your duty under the militia. It's there, what? To protect us from a tyrant government. I mean, that moron, that leftist cuck, Bill Maher, he gets up there and he says the only reason the Second Amendment was in there was to enforce slavery. I mean, come on now. Man, how big of a lie can a man say on national TV? How big of a lie? And he sits up there and he says it with authority. The man is a traitor. He hates this country. He hates everything that this country was founded upon. And it was founded upon freedom. And freedom means that you have to be responsible for your own life. You can start with nothing and you can become the richest guy in the country. And you can do all that as providing you don't violate somebody else's life, liberty, or property. There's nothing wrong with being rich. But the people today that are rich are the ones who control everything, the money. They control it, and we call it a deep state. They control it completely outside of the law. But you can't know that. Your children are being brainwashed in the 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto with free education in public schools, and then really the place where we entrust our children's minds to, the colleges, the professors. Instead of teaching American history and how it was set up and what is to be a good citizen, they're teaching our children how to commit insurrection, rebellion, and treason against the Constitution. These people are criminals. Nobody has a right in this country to promote the overthrow of it, and especially to incite people to get into violence. Well, anyway, I want to go ahead and stop there because I can go on for hours about this stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of stimulate your intellect a little bit and say, hey, maybe the ghetto man's right. Maybe he's right. Maybe I should start to take a look at what's really going on here. Instead of just posting a bunch of memes on Facebook and Twitter, why don't you start to take a look at what it is to be a responsible citizen and learn what your duties are. If you're going to be the boss, the sovereign, you better start acting like it. And when I look around here, people aren't acting like bosses anymore. What they're acting like is they're acting like slaves. They're doing what the master tells them to do, and they never question it. They never sit there and say, hey, I have a right to defend myself. I wonder how quickly the left would start screaming if we started, what we're going to do now is we're going to go out and declaw all the grizzly bears so nobody gets hurt, and the grizzly bears can't hurt anybody else. But the grizzly bears can't defend themselves anymore. Maybe we should take all the claws off of all the lions and tigers. We'll disarm them. How will they will survive? There's no difference. When you're a human being, you have a right to protect yourself, you have a right to acquire property, and you have a right to defend that property. You have a right to enjoy your life and live your life the way you choose to live it, not the way the legislators want to do, based upon the corporations that are constantly, creating laws and then working them through the legislator, laws that benefit them and take away the rights of the citizens, which they have no legal right to do. And if a right's being taken away from you, you have every right to defend your position, and violently if necessary. And that's where we're heading today. We're heading into it's going to be violent confrontation. I don't want that. And we can stop that today. We can stop that right now. And it's through education, not going to college. You can be brainwashed into some leftist, communist, socialist, bigoted, anti-American extremist guy. I can go on and on. I mean, you're not going to get an education in the public school system, and you're not going to get an education in college. They're not going to teach you what you need to know to really go out here and be a good citizen. What they're going to do is they're going to poison your mind and turn you into a complete moron, like these anti-fascist people who are really nothing more than fascists. They're duplicates of Hitler's brown shirts, the Democratic Party's version of the brown shirts. Well, anyway, if you're politically correct, then you're legally wrong. And if you're not part of the solution, then you are the problem. I am the Ghetto Man. Thank you for watching.
Look what you've done to your world. It used to be a wonderful place to live. There's no truth here anymore. Just lies and corruption. The beast controls everything, terrorizing the planet, waging war against all who would resist his evil command. Everyone's now a suspect, guilty until the beast says otherwise. Welcome to the land of the free and the home of the slave.